Welcome, Carolyn. So glad you could be here with us today.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, we tried a few times to do this recording. Technical issues, Yukon, Canada, connecting with Belize, where you are. Didn't quite work, but we seem to be okay today.
That's good.
And where exactly are you in Belize? You're sort of on the Guatemala border?
I'm right up, on the western border, 8 miles from the Guatemalan border here. Yes.
Okay. And how is the January weather treating you in Belize?
Right now it's 87. Beautiful, clear blue sky, high clouds. Lovely.
Now, as a bit of a background, you just celebrated your 70th birthday, and congratulations on that. And we did an interview last year where you told your story about being, you've grown to identify yourself as a first wave starseed volunteer.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
and so
that's true.
In a few quick words or sentences, what does that mean to you?
Well, when I first discovered this concept, the idea of volunteers and starseeds, which was quite recently, when I heard the volunteer concept, my whole skin, the hairs on my arms stood up, because as soon as the person said it to me, I knew that was who I was. And it's so many things just clicked into place about my life and the meaning of my life. It made it coherent in a way that it had not been coherent before. And so I jumped into exploring that more deeply. And it was a significant shift for me coming into that realization. So, yeah.
And you've done a whole lifetime of exploration of you spent some time in the Moonies. You've spent some time with Ashayanda Deane, Native American shamanism, and lately we met in working with Z Earth Star Healer in a year-long course, Galactic Shamanism Mentorship. So we did a lot of exploration over the past year on many different things. And did that help to kind of solidify or bring in these codes or understanding that you have for yourself as a starseed?
Oh, yes, definitely. Z's teachings, some of the most powerful that I've come across in my lifetime. The level of clarity and the power that comes through is immense. And I feel very much in alignment with it. And it's been very enlightening in shedding more light onto the mystery of what my life has been all about. What the heck am I doing here?
It feels like it's finally making sense. Took you.
Yes, it is. Yes.
So then what part of this is really kind of helpful for you? As you say, identifying as a starseed, and as I say, our previous interview, first wave starseed, you popped into this realm just after World War II. What some are saying was that first wave of volunteers from other realms, dimensions to say, yeah, I'm going to be a human. I don't know what the hell's going on down there, but they say they need some help.
Yeah, definitely. That's me. Z's teachings have been so powerful for me. One of the things that she has taught recently, actually in the Pleiadian Gateway, was when she described how we got into this situation on this planet.
Collectively? Like how we got here?
Right. Yes, as everybody, not just us, starseeds.
This big, this big human mess that we got
this
going
whole
on down here.
situation, what it was, and where we are now, the consciousness experiment, and I may be mixing some of Elizabeth Wood's stuff in here, but the consciousness experiment, the free will experiment, is winding up now, and because Source wanted to experience what not Source was, and the result of that was that, again, volunteers, and I don't doubt that I was one of them, we jumped in and said, okay, we'll do it. We'll find out what it's like to be without Source. and that's what we've been going through, this surely on a galactic level, not just on the level of the Earth planet.
And just to clarify that, the concept being, once there was just unified source consciousness, and it was great, and it was just pure light, love, vibration. And then it said, I'm a little bored here. I want to kind of go experiment and check out some other forms of consciousness. And the one way that it created this game for it to play was, what happens if I totally forget that I'm connected to source consciousness? And then what type of new experiences do we have? And some describe our human realm as almost the most disconnected that you can possibly be from source consciousness. Like, we pop in here, we get this amnesia wipe. We don't know what the hell happened to us before. We don't have any clue what's going on besides our senses and what's going on in our general environment. And it is, I kind of think of it something like being plopped down on Antarctica, like we're on some Antarctica exploration. Like, we just have no clue where we don't even know that there's warm places to be full of trees. We're just kind of all huddled on the ice shelf here in human form.
Yes, that's a very good description of it. So we reached the point in time on a galactic or universal level, I don't know which level, but anyway, where Source said to itself, enough is enough.
Because we get separated and we get kind of twisted. We go down the road of violence and abuse and greed, like everything that we got going on this planet right now. All the horrible, twisted, low consciousness stuff is because we don't think of ourselves as one unified consciousness. We
lost that.
We lost that a long time ago.
Lost that such a long time ago. And so Source decided that the experiment was finished, that he knew enough, English language is inadequate. It knew enough about separation, didn't need to know any more now. The experiment needs to be wound up. It's like that point is enough is enough. And out of that thought was birthed the concept of the Starseeds.
Almost like the cleanup crew. I think I think about the people that show up at the end of the party. It's like your parents come home and you're just having this raging teenage party, and the parents show up and they say, "Okay, everybody,
turn the lights
turn off the music,
pull the plug on the music."
And
you see it. Then you see the mess you made. Oh my God!
You see the mess.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. But what's happening with the party and what the cleanup crew is discovering is the people don't want to start the party. They don't want to stop. I mean, the party does not want to stop. It has such inertia. People have been partying in this way for so long, making this mess. They don't know any different.
Yeah.
So there's this extra challenge of being the one to say, hey, party's over. And everyone's like,
yeah.
I think people don't even know there's a party going on. They don't know kind of that it's sort of like that there's something to change and stop some behavior to go back the other way on.
Yeah, that's for a lot of people, that's true. But I think more and more are waking up to the fact, because it's like that turning the light on. the light gets bright enough, you can't not see it. And I think that is what is happening. In fact, there was a great explanation of that from, what's her name, Laurie Ladd. And she said, like, we've been on this planet, we've been like these people, we've been in this arena. And the arena is lit up with spotlights. And that's all we see, where we haven't seen all the people in the bleachers all around. And now, as the light starts to come up, like the house lights in a theater, then you begin to see what's in the bleachers, what's been all around us all the time. And, you know, as the light gets intenser and intenser, it's going to be impossible for anybody to not see it. Everybody will have to see it. And I think that's a good analogy of it. Because the ones sitting in the bleachers are the manipulators, the ones who are behind the game. You know what I mean?
There's some manipulators, and there's also those that are helping us too. So
Yes.
like there's both is going on at the same time. They're both out there in the bleachers, but we've been through quite a dark age of humanity, particularly the last 5,000-10,000 years, where it seems like this deeper knowledge of our expanded belonging and connection to the rest of the galaxy and dimensions and other realms of being has just been kind of like that understanding's been cut off.
Yes, definitely. And and Z was saying actually just last week in the Starseed mission support that we do not want to fall in, and these are not her exact words, this is my interpretation of it, that we do not want to fall into the mindset of, oh, the humans are stupid, they're not waking up fast enough. That it's because we, you know, that we can wake up now because we have the coding for it. We came in with the coding for it. And what we have to understand is that humanity have been so abused for so long that it's very difficult for them to wake up.
There is a lot of healing that is on a lot of levels that we're just sort of realizing, you know, part of the party was fun, but a lot of it was very, very destructive and very violent, very abusive, very,
Yes.
We've been through a lot.
Yeah. And I really feel that in myself when I consider that whole thing is like, you know, for me as whoever I am, this multidimensional being, I have had enough. Like I say enough is enough. Enough is enough. This has got to finish. This has got to stop. I won't, and it's like, personally, I will not be a part of continuing this on. I mean, I feel that really down into my bones. Right. Enough is enough.
And for people listening that might not be kind of familiar with these concepts, that what you're referring to is the notion that, you know, we take a lot of this blame that where we say, oh, humans, and we kind of think, oh, we screwed up this world and look at all this pollution and look at all these things. But we were led that way, that there have been masters or people who are in control on higher dimensional levels that have kept us in this kind of lower state of consciousness for a long time. So you're speaking to what term should we use here? Like some people are calling it the false matrix. There's kind of control and domination, overlords. There's a lot of different terminology that's coming out these days. Lots of people are talking about it. Z's one, Laura Eisenhower. Yeah. There's lots of people that are speaking about these things. How do you describe it yourself as to this situation that humanity finds itself in and has been in for thousands of years?
Right. Well, I think the false matrix is a really good term for it. It pretty much captures it in a nutshell, because it's, even going back to the ancient Hindu concept of Maya illusion, it's similar. There have been various ways of expressing this through time, but I think the false matrix is a really good way of expressing it in this time, especially out of the Matrix movies, because everybody kind of gets that. And it's in tune with like the modern consciousness. So talking about Maya and illusion for most people is probably just crazy, right? Doesn't register, it doesn't resonate. You say something like the false matrix, most people can resonate with that on some level.
Yeah, or some people can. I think that's the other challenge, that it's quite, the information of it is difficult for a lot of people to grasp, because I heard it described in something, I don't know, maybe you've come across this little audio clip called The Prophecy that's been kind of going around on social media. The teacher, it's anonymous, but she sort of describes it like, on some higher dimensional ways, these beings who have been, say, the overlords, the oppressors of humanity, are starting to be rounded up, and it's that starting to be cleaned up on that level. The challenge is telling the humans that there's been something wrong over the past thousands of years. Like, we don't believe it. This is all we know. We only know this situation, so there's this extra challenge, like things like religion, to say, hey, all these people, that the 2 billion people on earth that are members of the Catholic Church, to say to them, you know what, this is a little distorted, and you've been kind of, the real understanding of God consciousness, even Jesus's story, has been, it's been heavily distorted, and you haven't really been told the truth. Those 2 billion people, like, most of them would just think you're full of shit, and they're not even going to consider that concept.
Oh yeah, that's hard. That's a tough one. And yeah. And there are other X million billion number of people who are Muslims as well. I haven't an answer to that except to keep on doing what I'm doing.
So it is sort of an interesting challenge to have some awareness of these things going on, and then how do you express it to people in language or concepts that, I guess that's what we're doing here in some way. How can this start to disseminate to people?
Well, I think one of the steps that needs to be taken is the clearing of the trauma that makes it very difficult for people to open their minds to anything new. So now that is the purpose of my new healing modality. Time loop therapy, healing in the quantum field, and healing in the quantum field is everywhere at the moment. Everybody's talking about it. It seems like everywhere I look, this is up.
Yeah, and even those that are talking about energy healing, or there's all sorts of healing that could be Reiki, could be acupuncture, that there's an element to it that it's all taking place in the quantum field, so to speak.
Yes, it all is. Yes, definitely. And
so before we get into your practice right now with the time loop therapy, what does that mean to you? Like, if you had to explain it to your neighbor, they said, "Carolyn, what the hell are you talking about? What the hell's the quantum field?"
What is a time loop?
Okay, but let's start with quantum field. What the hell does that mean?
Quantum field is the I can't give it a scientific. My mind doesn't bend that way. It's like the way my mind works is I just grasp something as in its wholeness, and I just know it. Now, that makes it very difficult to try to explain it, especially to a person who's still in this linear mindset where everything, one step at a time. It kind of, I find it
And to
quite
go back
difficult
to our
to.
previous interview, you've had that experience your whole life where you've just
I
had
have,
deep
yes,
knowings and
yes, yeah,
understanding, and you've
yeah,
worked with guides your whole life, and
yeah.
and so this stuff comes just naturally for you.
It does. So it makes it quite difficult to explain it to a linear, scientific minded collective, if you like. The quantum field is the field where all the energy is, and we all come out of it. It's like a huge ocean, and it has waves in the sense that, individual consciousness peaks as a wave, and then it's absorbed back into the field, and the field, we are in it. We can't be apart from it, even though we have this illusion of separation because of this experimenting consciousness. That is an illusion, because we are in, it's like a big soup of energy. We're all in it. We can't not be in it. Even, we can't not be in it. It's just everything that is all at once. So time, in our time matrix, we experience time as linear, going forward from here to there. And according to that idea, you can't go back in time. Although
That's our general perception
that's
down
our
here as our
general,
third
yes,
dimension, third density beings. Yeah, we have this linear time perception.
and it only goes in one direction. Well, that is an illusion.
Yes, many are saying that. Those codes or understandings are downloads are coming fast and furious these days.
Yes, definitely. So what this therapy is, which came to me as a download, was based on a personal experience
And
that
this is based on kind of quantum understanding. This is what you're calling time loop therapy.
yes, yeah.
And do you want to just explain a bit how it's come to you in the recent months? Because you said
Right.
there was quite a shift that took place during the Palladian Gateway that was late November
Yes, yeah.
and mid late November. The alignment of the Earth, Sun, and the Pleiades constellation was there, and that's what's
Yes, yeah.
some refer to as a Palladian gateway. We did a weekend workshop with Z Earthstar where she led us through many journeying and sort of, yeah, we did some consciousness explorations during that time. And she was working with some Palladian guides who were bringing through some magic or codes or understanding or
Yeah.
however word you
Yeah.
want to use.
Yes.
So what was that like for you during, if you go back there and describe how this has unfolded for you over the past months?
Okay, well, the Z brought certain codes through just prior to that gateway. And I
And by
found
codes, you mean what did she done?
A code is like a what do they call that? A yantra. But she's taken it to another level where it's not just a static picture.
So it's an actual picture.
It's a picture of a mandala, but the mandala moves. It's taken to another level where it because of the technology we have these days, we can do that. So it's not just a static mandala. It's it moves, breathes.
Right. And just to expand that idea a little bit, this is sort of like, it's sort of sacred geometry. It's like a symbol. A lot of people are saying this is what's coming through in crop circles. This is the type of like codes, so to speak. Like this holds a lot of energy, holds a lot of information, just these sacred geometric patterns that are we have now receptors in our DNA and that sort of thing that's sort of coming online. We're starting to be able to understand this at some higher levels. So Z's working with some of these codes. There's lots of people out there, light language people are starting to explore, and there's a lot of symbols and all we call them codes, general codes coming through
Yeah.
from beyond.
Yes, yes. So anyway, one of these codes particularly affected me. I carried on working with it after we had that weekend, and I believe it was connected to that code that I received this download, and it came. Well, downloads come, at least in my experience, they come as an energy packet, like you get a download or an overhead with computers. You get this piece of something, you have to
well,
open
you get
it.
the whole file,
Yeah.
but then you have to listen to it.
Open it and then go through it, right? So that's a process. The download just comes instantaneously. And as I began to work with that, then I got this insight about the time loop therapy. And it was based on an experience I personally had in my life previously. Quite a number of years, a number of decades previously. And I hadn't understood it for what it was at the time. What happened, this memory came up. Now I'm talking like back in my 30s. A suppressed memory came up for me of a traumatic experience. And the result of this, I was about 8 years old, and I went out of the house and I went into the garden and got hid in a corner so they couldn't see me from the house. And I was deeply upset. It was not just that particular incident. It was like the straw that broke the camel's back. It was one more thing on top of so many things. And I was standing in the corner and I could not understand how to deal with it. And it felt energetically as like an implosion in my heart center, which in modern parlance, I guess we would call that my heart broke. And
how old were you when you had this experience?
I was not more than 9, probably 8 or 9, somewhere around there. And I was standing there not knowing what I could do, like not knowing how can I continue. Now, this came up to me when I was in my 30s. And at that point in time, I don't know how I knew this. It was something I'd just read that triggered me or what. I have no idea. But I got this idea that I can go back from that as my adult self. I can go back to my traumatized 8-year-old self. And I can just give her some hope or give her a sense that it's okay. And basically, it's okay. You do make it. You do make it. It's okay. But that didn't prevent the energetic of that trauma from being frozen in time. Because, when you're traumatized as a child, the child imperative is you must keep growing. You have to keep going. You're growing. You have to keep growing. In order to be able to continue to do that, the trauma it requires, in the sense that you have to freeze it. Like you break it off, it becomes fragmented. In order for you to continue growing, because you do not have the capacity at that time to be able to deal with that level of trauma. So it gets frozen in time.
Or as you said, it fragments and it breaks off and it stays frozen like this frozen chunk.
Yes.
There it is.
the most obvious result of that is that as the traumas accumulate, which they inevitably do in this world, you have less and less life force energy available to your life stream, because there's all these fragments that have been broken off and frozen in time. So, and they don't go away. You have to actually engage them and thaw them out. But as an adult, you can, because you do, as an adult, you do have the capacity to do that. You have the internal strength, you have the knowledge, you have all of the things, the capacity that you need to go back and heal those things. So that they reminded me of that, and they told me in this download, yes, you can do this for other people. Not that I do it for them, but I can show them how to do it for themselves.
So describe what that initial experience was like, though. Say you were in your 30s, and what happened when you did this time loop and you went back to your 9-year-old self and did that healing?
Well, I felt it worked, but I didn't extrapolate from it for some reason. I don't know why. I didn't extrapolate from that. Oh, well, I can find other bits of myself and heal those too. I just didn't.
But what was the experience like to do that actual healing? Was it, did you meditate? Did it happen in the dream state?
No, it just happened. It's like instantaneously in my mind. It was just I guess you
just had this click, and it's like, I got to go heal that 9-year-old self. And you had the experience of whatever through the time dimensions, those two. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I'm not a seer in the sense that I see visions and things. Not really. It's just, it's energy, and it's instantaneous. As I had the thought, I did it. And going back to my
And did you feel after you said it did it feel like that had thawed out, that fragment had been returned, the 9-year-old had been healed of that trauma in some way?
I felt very much that, yes. Because going back to the 8-year-old self, I felt a shift then. I remembered feeling a shift then. That after I experienced that heartbreak, heart implosion, I remember feeling something, and of course I had no idea what, but I remember feeling that I can go on. It will be okay. I can go on. It will be okay. That was really that's what happened, and I came out of my corner and carried on. So
you have. It happened on a couple levels. You even remember that it had happened in real time as a 9-year-old.
Yes.
That connection, that cross-time connection with your 30-year-old self. Yeah. You had the experience as the 30-year-old, and you remember it as the 9-year-old as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it happened. So it seems, looking back now, it seems pretty incredible that I didn't connect the dots then. But I didn't.
As you said, to have done that with more of your frozen, traumatized parts. You had that epiphany.
Yeah,
but you're saying even at that moment, you didn't get a download, you didn't have guidance, your guides didn't talk to you in your sleep and said, hey, you got to go back and heal. It just, the idea came to you. Mm-hmm. You said it happened, felt like instantaneous. And you went, wow, great. I just healed that little chunk of 9-year-old trauma.
Yeah.
But you didn't have the idea, I could heal my 11-year-old trauma and my 12-year-old trauma as well.
It didn't connect. It didn't. It just, I don't know, it just didn't register with me that I could go back further and deal with the other traumas.
But in this recent download, you said within the Palladian Gateway, this is the one that you got and it's been unspooling, it said, Did it direct you, or the sense that you could do that with yourself, or was it really specific that you could go and help others do this same thing?
It was specific that I could create a therapy to help others to do it. Yes. And plus then I realizing, well, I better get in there and do my own other trauma stuff that's still there that I never even considered, never even entered my head to do that with. I'm not saying I've done a lot of shadow work, believe me. You don't spend 10 years in the deer tribe without having a real good look into your shadow. That's whole part of it. But there's always still extra pieces somehow that keep showing up. Oh, I didn't completely fix that one. So it's an ongoing process, but I feel like this is the time of therapy, as it was shown to me. I can give people a very effective tool for them to then continue to use to deal with their trauma and the shadow that was created from the trauma, which still pulls our strings if it's unconscious. It's like, we become the puppet as our strings are being pulled by all this unconscious energy and the patterns that are in it. As long as we don't, fish it up out of the bottom of the pond up into the air and the daylight, where it will just simply dissolve, actually. As long as we let go of it.
So what has been your experience then of the past months? You say you've been experimenting with this. You've been working with some people and doing this, what you're calling time loop therapy. We're teaching people to go back to their own younger, traumatized selves through kind of quantum field time,
yes,
whatever time is or understanding of it, but to kind of dispel our notion of 3D linear time and to be able to put that aside and go back. So what's that journey been like working with other people?
I just put it up on Facebook that I was looking for volunteers for this new therapy, and I got so many. I had to literally make a schedule with a master list, and it became quite complicated. I had so many, and through that, doing that, I learned a few things. One is that people need to be taught possibly a little more. You see, I tend to me, when I say healing, for instance, for me, when I say that word healing, I immediately think of energetic healing. I don't think of my sore foot or my ingrowing toenail or, but then I realize a lot of people do think that. They think that's what it is, right? It's not going to heal your ingrowing toenail. It's not going to heal your digestive problems. It may do.
If they're related in some way to that trauma.
Because those things exist as a byproduct. Well, probably not ingrowing toenails, but, certain illnesses do exist.
You never know, Carolyn. Ingrown toenails can be the result of all kinds of past life crap and trauma. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, I shouldn't denigrate ingrowing toenails. Okay. But that's one big thing I learned, that I need to be very clear and really give really concise, clear explanations that we're dealing with energies and energetic healing, and it's a trauma healing. As you then release the energy that's being caught in the shadow and it becomes available as energy in the now, in this moment, to your live stream, it may well result in healing some serious illness. I would not be surprised at that at all. But the focus is not that. The focus is I'm not going to sit here and visualize sending healing energy to your, your whatever,
spleen
your
or
spleen, your liver, your stomach,
your
your heart.
acid reflux.
Yeah. That's not what it's about. That's one thing I realized. Then the other thing I realized is that it does not work if you are not willing to surrender yourself to the process. And most of them were, some were not.
So that process being, you're going to go back just this playing with time in a way. Like that's what you're doing.
Some people I found were so highly defended. They're not willing. You see, I have to take you back. It has to be experiential, at least that first time. So if they're not willing to open up about their trauma, I cannot help them create that time loop, because they're just so defended. And I found that in a couple of cases, which felt kind of like a bit of a waste of time, because you have to be willing to go with the process. It just won't work. So those are two things that really became clear to me from doing the practices, which I think are two quite important things.
The people have to be ready, and they have to accept the nature of the energetic work.
Yeah. I can't, to me, it's, and there's something else I had to understand is, because to me, healing has always been like that. It's always been about energy, and energies are not really about, like, they're not personal. To me, it's not personal. So you tell me some trauma from your child, that is not it's not personal to me. And, it's not like I'm trying to, root around in your trauma because I want to know about this, that, and the other. I mean, that is just not that. And by the time you're 70 years old, believe me, nothing will surprise you.
Your not give a shit index is like gone way up.
It's off the charts. I mean, it's just nothing will surprise you at that age. This is just all the human reality. There's nothing surprising about it at this point.
But you've also hit on a very good point about ways in which we can heal and help with these healing processes is to be non-personal and to be non-attached with it. That we, there's so many schools of thought, your classic non-dual, thinkers is about like detachment and detach from the ego and don't identify with our trip so much down here. Yes, there's trauma. Yes, there's pain. But if you keep it in the realm of the story that you're telling about it and me, this happened to me, and you identify with it through that, it's easier to release. If you think about it, it's like a thorn that's just in your foot. It's you weren't going to
take that personally. Yeah. If somebody's going to take the thorn out of your foot, you're not ashamed of the fact that you have a thorn in your foot. You see, the real problem I think, this is what I think anyway. The real reason why people defend to that degree is because of shame.
Yeah. I've felt that myself. It's a very hard one to get. It's very hard to get over. And it's just one thing to just say, hey man, don't identify with it. But the reality is there's a lot of deep wounding on that personal level.
And the problem is the shame that the root of the shame is, I blame myself because I wasn't strong enough, I wasn't big enough, I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't brilliant enough, I wasn't whatever, fill in the blank. And so somehow, some level, we believe really deeply inside us that it was our fault that we experienced this form of trauma, victimization, whatever it was, that somehow it's to do with me being not adequate. And that's where the shame comes from. So, as far as I can tell, the biggest thing you can do is start forgiving yourself. Because it was not your fault that this 6 foot, 200-pound person did X, Y, Z to you when you were a little 50-pound kid. That's not your fault. You have to know that very, very clearly. That was not your fault. Because that's where the shame comes from. The shame is because at some level you are thinking that you did it, you created the situation, or you should have been able to stop that from happening, when it's totally unrealistic. It's totally unrealistic. So it's a matter of, you can't get very far on the spiritual path without self-acceptance. And for self-acceptance, that it means you have to accept the fact that when you were a kid, you were a kid. You're not expected to behave like an adult. It's a big part of self-acceptance, self-forgiveness. Then you can accept yourself. Then we can talk about self-love. Talking about self-love without you having not forgiven yourself, and you haven't been able to accept yourself because you haven't forgiven yourself, then, self-love is just the same as like the Hollywood falling in love idea. It's as unreal as that.
Yes.
It's just,
and
we're in the
what
realm
I've
of spiritual
noticed,
bypassing then.
what I've noticed in my own journey is just this, like I describe it as kind of like, some of the phrase unconditional love, or just experiencing like the love. I was with a teacher and who used to describe it, say, are you feeling love? Or are you feeling the love? Just this other part that is underneath, and it is much deeper than this personal love. When we decide to love somebody or something, or there's an object of our attachment with this love direction, when instead it's just like that just omnidirectional, I love everything. I love my table, and I love my plants, and the feeling that, and that I know from my own journey that didn't come online. Took a while to cultivate that, to work through my own layers of shit and trauma and all these sorts of things, and or self-identity that had to be released from, and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
And that once you apply that as well to yourself, where it's just unconditional love. Oh, whatever happened, we make mistakes. This is such a messed up trip to be a human being. How could you possibly think that it's somehow to be perfected? Because it's like, you can't even really come close.
When I was in the mystery school, that's back in the mid-1980s, Elizabeth Clare Prophet said, this is not the realm of perfection. This is not the realm of perfection. Don't expect perfection at this level. It doesn't exist. It's unreal. But and the actually love is impersonal. What we call love, which is personal, is tentacles. That's what it feels like to me.
It's got some electricity to it. There's some attraction, like we feel those butterflies.
You want to return. I almost don't want to use that word most of the time, because for most people, love means I want you to make me happy. That's
or
not
some
love.
experience. Yeah.
That's not love.
There's conditions there.
I love you, so that means, you're supposed to, fulfill my every need. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. So
even recently, another episode I did with a friend. She's an energy healer, and we were talking about this form of love. and whether it even comes through the heart chakra, like this personal love might not. She said, as an energy healer, she thinks it comes through the other chakras. It's not even coming through what we think of as the heart. Like that's the realm of the universal love. That's the realm that just is as big as the universe, if you want it to be. Like there's no shortage of access to love in that zone.
Right. True. The yogis, the ones that I have met in Kundalini yoga, they always say that enlightenment, the distance between non-enlightenment and enlightenment is that much, which is the distance between the third chakra and the fourth chakra, the solar plexus chakra and the heart chakra. Because when you move from the third chakra to the fourth chakra level of consciousness, it's like a sea change. That is, you're in a totally different level. The three lower chakras are all about, survival, procreation, sex, and power. Once you get beyond that into the heart, then you're getting beyond the personal at that point. It's, we're entering the realm of the impersonal, the beyond the personal. It's just another way of saying it.
So to do a little loop back into your time loop therapy, what has been the result of working with the people? You said there were some conditions. So those that were accepting of, they're ready to deal with their trauma, they were open to it, they were ready to accept, that they were on board with energetic healing and knew what that was about. What were those experiences like? How effective was this time loop therapy?
Well, I would say that those who went along with it and, were willing to surrender to the process had some quite profound experiences.
And did they describe similar experiences as the one that you had, where you went back to your 9-year-old self? And was it similar to that experience?
Kind of. For some people, yes. For some, not quite so much. I mean, there's as many different experiences as there are individuals.
Of course.
So, and what I found, like for me, it was like learning how do I figure out, how do I find a way in to how it will work for them. And it was a lot easier, of course, with those who've already done a lot of shadow work and already, and are quite already willing to surrender to the process.
Now, in the process where you're leading people back in time, did you operate in any way? Are you operating as a guide, like a time guide? Are you journeying back with them?
Yes. I did it more through a body scan as much as anything else. That I think I may develop more into. I'm really feeling my way into how to make it like what would work best with different people, and to be able to be in that, just to be able to suss it out in the moment, what would work best for them. So, I'm right. I'm still right at the beginning. So,
right. So as this is fresh, are you still looking for people to work with and kind of this experimental journey, or as maybe it's not even experimental, it works, you're just trying to, how would you describe it? You're trying to just flush out the nuances and the details and the skills of this modality.
I did the number of practices that I set for myself. And right now what I'm trying to do is write a Facebook page and set up a Facebook group, eventually maybe a website, but I'm not going there right away. Just to get it going. And I decided I'm not going to be asking for volunteers just out in just like generally, because too many people, and it wasn't that many, but certainly I would say too many, were just volunteering because it was something they could do for free and not committed to the process at all. And to me, that kind of feels like I'm wasting my time, and I
You
don't
and every
want
other
to waste my time.
practitioner that's out there trying to heal people.
The
It's
person
like the
has to want to heal.
physiotherapists that, the people don't want to do the exercises that they give them. You have to be, because so much of it comes from you. Who's doing the healing? You're doing the healing. Doctors don't necessarily heal you. They'll give you some things but your body does the healing.
Yes.
You do your own healing. You work with people who are guides and helpers. But if you're not on board with that, then
you can point
about
people in the right direction. Well, the old saying, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. It's the same, that is so true. So that's the game we're in, right? Taking them to water. I'm not going to force it down your throat.
So far, you find that this time loop therapy, that's still what you're calling it, has been successful. You're going to continue. And do you think, you'll be hanging out your shingle, so to speak, out into the world and offering this service to others, or is it still too early to tell?
No, I'm going to do that. Absolutely. I'm definitely going to do that. I feel like that's what I'm called to do that right now. And I won't be charging an arm and a leg. I've always kept my prices reasonable, even doing massage. I just find it quite... I can't think of a word that's not going to upset so many people, but I just cannot charge people what I could not afford myself. And it just does not feel right for me to do that. It just does not. Like it's the prices some people charge for this kind of thing is just like outright daylight robbery. And a lot of times, even my massage, I don't charge a lot. And a business person would come in and tell me, oh, well, you have to start charging more and you have to start doing this and you have to start. I don't want to. I like working at this level. I like being available, to people who can't afford more than a few $40, $50, something like that. It just doesn't feel right to me.
Carolyn. There's many out there.
Yeah, I just don't feel right about it. And
but your journey, it seems, since the moment you popped in, has been more about the deeper exploration and sharing that and helping to anchor some of those vibrations into this place.
Yes, I guess it has. I feel very allergic to this mindset that come across in spiritual circles. Well, I'm going to charge $100 an hour. I'm talking back in the 1990s when $100 an hour was substantial, and everybody does that now. But I'm going to charge $100 an hour because I'm worth it. What? It doesn't compute to me. It's not about whether you're worth it. It's what people can afford. It just doesn't compute for me.
That's a whole other subject that we're getting into.
Right.
The current business behind spirituality, how some are called to perform their services or not. But it's I'm inspired, Carolyn. I know others like yourself that do this work, and I know other healers who do a lot of pro bono work or charge those that can afford to pay what they can pay and charge less to others and are free and that sort of thing. And I think it helps to keep the vibration strong all around. And I think there's lessons of abundance, as you know, you probably realized as well that it's not just about money, how we live an abundant life.
It really isn't.
You know,
Yeah. I came
there's
across a
many
meme.
more.
I came across a meme earlier today. I put it on my Facebook page, and it's if you can how did it go? If you can be happy with what's put in front of you and always eat the food in your dish, and you can run around all day without taking a drink or a pill, and you don't get envious when your neighbors go to some, exotic location, and you're not jealous of the car that the other neighbor has, something like I'm making it up right now, but it was along those lines. And right at the end, it says, "You must be a dog. If you can do all this, you must be a dog." That was what's his name? That meditation teacher, Jack Cornfield.
Oh, Jack Cornfield! I didn't know he was such a comic.
I didn't either.
Well, good for Jack.
Yeah.
Good reminders. Yes. And that I think what's coming online, and this is the next phase where we're all going, is just back to what we were talking about at the beginning, how source separated, how there's been this experiment where that we are we have this perception that we're separate. So I have mine, you have yours. We look at others as other, not as one. And that, the consciousness that we're moving to is we look at each other as all as one. So if our neighbor goes on a vacation and I don't, well, somebody's going on a vacation. Unified source consciousness is going on vacation. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Some part of it is having that enjoyable experience. And maybe we just have to, we got to think about the parts of source consciousness that aren't having such pleasant experiences and trauma and healing that needs to kind of happen. So we can this whole thing, this whole unified everythingness can be moving forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So
on behalf of one side of unified source consciousness to another, Carolyn, thanks for all the work that you're doing and helping with the healing and helping to release people from trauma and, all the work you've done and continue to do. It's heartwarming to know that you're out there and wish you all the best with this new world of quantum time loop therapy.
Right.
You know what? It certainly sounds like you could charge a lot of money for that. That certainly sounds like it's $300 an hour.
I won't be charging
quantum
that.
Time loop therapy.
I guarantee you, I'm not going to charge that.
Anyways, it's always lovely to talk to you, Carolyn. You got a wealth of information, and we'll do it again sometime soon. We'll check in.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And again, a reminder for those of you who want to know more about Carolyn's whole backstory, a previous episode of McNuttiest Dimension from last July, Carolyn told her whole story as a first wave Starseed volunteer. So yes, we'll have you on again because always an enlightened guest.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Carolyn. Enjoy your January Belize afternoon.
Balmy weather at 87 degrees Fahrenheit in January. Okay. Thank you.